The Montana plains stretched wide beneath a burning sunset, the kind that turned the sky into fire and bled into the rolling hills. For most, it was a sight to marvel at. For Luke Callahan, rancher and loner by choice, it was simply another end to another long day. His boots crunched against the gravel as he crossed the yard toward the barn, a pitchfork resting across his shoulder. The cattle were restless tonight, their low moans carrying across the field. Luke chalked it up to coyotes or maybe the storm clouds gathering far to the west. He had no idea something far stranger had already stepped onto his land. At first he thought it was the wind moving, a trick of light in the shadows. But as he drew nearer, the shape became clearer, a young woman standing stiffly near the barn door. "Evenin'. You lost, miss?" The woman flinched, clutching her arms to her chest. Her dress, once fine, was torn along the hem. Her shoes, scuffed and dusty, spoke of miles traveled on foot. But what struck Luke most was her eyes, wide, glassy, and haunted as if she'd run from something unspeakable. "No, I was brought here. Please, please don't send me away." Luke's brows furrowed. He set the pitchfork down and approached slowly, his every step deliberate, careful not to spook her. That's when he saw it, a thin black ribbon tied snug around her throat. It wasn't just an accessory, it was bound too tight, too precise, as if holding something together. "Now hold on. No one's sending you anywhere. You're safe here, but what's that ribbon you're wearing?" Her hand shot up instantly, fingers pressing protectively against the knot at her neck. "Woman, don't take it off. Promise me you won't." Narrator. Her voice carried a sharp edge of panic unlike anything Luke had ever heard. She spoke as though the ribbon wasn't just fabric but a lifeline, the single thread holding her existence intact. "Luke. All right, I promise. But you'll have to explain to me why a bit of ribbon's got you so frightened." Narrator. She shook her head violently, strands of dark hair falling loose around her face. Her lips trembled and her whole body seemed to quiver as though she might collapse where she stood. "Woman, you don't understand. If it comes off, if anyone unties it, there'll be no stopping what happens next." Narrator Luke had lived alone on that ranch for 10 years, a man of steady routines and little imagination. But there was something in her tone, something raw, primal, that stirred a deep unease in his chest. "Luke, all right. I won't touch it. Not unless you want me to, but you look half-starved. Come inside, get warm. We'll figure things out." Narrator. The woman hesitated, glancing over her shoulder at the gathering darkness. For the briefest moment, Luke thought he saw a shadow move across the distant field. Long, twisted, unnatural, but when he blinked, it was gone. Narrator with trembling steps. She followed him toward the farmhouse. Narrator, descriptive, slower pace. The Callahan homestead wasn't much to look at. A squat, weather-worn cabin with a porch that groaned under its own weight, shutters that rattled in the wind and the faint smell of wood smoke curling from the chimney. But to the woman it seemed like sanctuary. Inside, the glow of a lantern lit the small kitchen. Luke ladled stew from a pot and slid a bowl in front of her. She ate quickly, almost feral in her hunger, while he sat across the table studying her in silence. Luke, quiet, probing. "Name's Luke Callahan. Folks around here call me Luke, and you?" Narrator. Her spoon froze halfway to her mouth. She lowered her eyes, refusing to meet his. Woman, soft, evasive. "Names don't matter. Not anymore." Narrator. Something about the way she said it sent a chill crawling down Luke's spine. He forced a small, steady breath. "Luke, suit yourself. But you can't expect me to ignore what's going on. You got someone looking for you? Husband? Family?" Her lips parted as if she might answer, but instead she pressed her palm against the ribbon again, eyes flicking toward the dark window. "They'll come. They always come. And when they do, you mustn't, under any circumstance, let them untie it." Narrator, shifting tone, suspenseful. Luke leaned back in his chair, folding his arms across his chest. He had 100 questions, but the terror in her eyes stopped him from voicing even one. It was clear that whatever hunted her was no ordinary threat. Outside, the wind picked up, whistling against the eaves. Somewhere out in the night, a lone coyote howled. The cattle in the barn grew restless again, their low bellows rising into a chorus. Damn critters never carry on like that unless something's real close. The woman dropped her spoon, clutching the ribbon with both hands now, her knuckles white. Her eyes widened, darting toward the door as if she heard something Luke could not. "They've found me." Luke's jaw tightened. He rose, reaching for the rifle hanging by the door. He didn't know who or what was after this stranger, but he knew one thing. Trouble had arrived at his doorstep. "Stay put. Whatever's out there, it won't touch you while you're under my roof." But even as he spoke the words, he couldn't shake the image of that ribbon, black, binding, and impossibly out of place on the neck of a frightened girl in the middle of the Montana plains. And in his gut, Luke Callahan felt the first stirrings of a truth he'd come to dread. Sometimes, promises can't be kept. Narrator, low, turns the night wore heavy on the Callahan ranch. Outside, the sky had turned from crimson to pitch, and the storm clouds that loomed in the west finally rolled closer, pressing the air into a silence so thick it seemed alive. Inside the small cabin, the woman sat stiffly at the table, her hands clutching the ribbon at her throat. Luke Callahan, rifle in hand, stood by the window, eyes scanning the dark fields. He had no idea what he was looking for, only that someone was out there. Luke, steady, measured. "Miss, you mind telling me who's after you? If I'm to defend my home, I ought to know what I'm facing." Narrator. The woman didn't answer right away. Instead, her eyes drifted to the door, as if she expected it to burst open at any moment. Finally, her lips parted, voice trembling. "Woman," hushed, fearful. "They're not like you. They're not like anyone you've known. If they find me, if they take this ribbon..." Narrator, building suspense. Her words trailed off into silence, and Luke noticed how her fingers dug into her own skin around the knot. He thought she might draw blood just from holding it too tightly. Luke, firm, trying to calm her. "Now listen here. I don't take kindly to intruders. If anyone comes knocking, I'll put lead in 'em before they reach the porch. You're safe." Narrator, uneasy, lingering. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure. There was something in her eyes that suggested bullets wouldn't matter. Narrator, slow, descriptive. Hours passed. The storm broke overhead, rain pelting the windows, wind howling like wolves across the plains. Luke lit another lantern and set it on the windowsill. The woman hadn't moved much, though she flinched with every crack of thunder. At last, Luke broke the silence. "Luke, gentle, curious. You never did tell me your name." "I don't much care for secrets under my roof." Narrator, her gaze flicked to him. Then to the ribbon before she whispered, "Woman soft." Resigned. "Evelyn." Narrator. It was a beautiful name, though she said it as if it hurt to speak it aloud. Luke, nodding, kindly. "Well, Evelyn, you've got my word. So long as you're here, no harm will come to you." Narrator, ominous. "But promises have weight, and some are too heavy to bear." Narrator, descriptive, slower. Around midnight, the cattle grew frantic. Their bellowing rose above the storm, urgent, panicked. Luke swore under his breath, grabbed his hat, and reached for the rifle again. Luke, determined. "Stay inside." "Bolt the door after me," Evelyn, pleading, desperate. "No, please." "Don't go out there. That's when they'll come. That's when they'll try to take it." Narrator. Her hands shook as she clutched the ribbon, her eyes wet with terror. Luke, steady, reassuring. "I ain't about to let my herd scatter, Evelyn. I'll only be a moment." Narrator. Before she could argue further, he stepped into the storm. Rain lashed his face, the wind tugged at his coat, and the cattle's cries split the night. Lantern light swung wildly in the barn as shadows danced along its wooden frame. Luke pushed the door open and froze. Narrator, low, suspenseful. Inside, the herd pressed tight against the far wall, eyes rolling white with fear. The stench of sweat and panic filled the air. And there, between the stalls, something moved. Not a man. Not an animal. Something in between. Narrator, chilling. Its limbs were too long, its body hunched, and its head cocked at an unnatural angle as it sniffed the air. Mud clung to its frame, and its skin seemed to shimmer wet, though no rain had touched it. When it turned, Luke caught sight of hollow eyes. Eyes that weren't eyes at all, but pits of darkness. Luke, low, muttering, "Sweet Mother of God." Narrator. The creature let out a sound, half hiss, half laugh, and bolted through a gap in the boards. The cattle screamed. Luke fired a shot into the night, but the bullet vanished into the storm. Narrator, urgent. By the time Luke stumbled back to the cabin, soaked to the bone, Evelyn was standing at the door. Pale as death, Evelyn whispering frantic. "You saw it, didn't you? You saw them." Luke, grim, nodding. "I saw something. Sure as hell wasn't human." Narrator. Her hands trembled, clutching the ribbon tighter. Evelyn, barely audible. "They'll keep coming, until it's untied. Until it's gone." Narrator. The storm raged on. Luke lit the fire higher and sat across from Evelyn, rifle resting on his lap. She sat curled in a chair, her knees drawn up, eyes locked on the flow,